The learning continues, so does the opportunity to reconnect and rebound as we commence day 2. Without any ado then, let's acquaint you with our first session here at Atmanirbhar Hall. It would be a panel discussion on circular economy, stimulating material autonomy, a step towards Atmanirbhar Bharat. To take the topic forward, may I first invite the moderator of the session, Mr. Jaideep Malviya, Managing Director, Malviya Solar Energy Consultancy and Board Director of International Solar Energy Society. Let's have a huge round of applause, please, for Mr. Malviya. We would now request Mr. Sachin Agrawal, AVP and Business Head, EPC Goldie Solar, to please come up. Let's have a round of applause as well. We'd now invite Mr. Arvind Poswal, Research Analyst, CEEW. Let's have a round of applause for Mr. Poswal as well. We'd now request Mr. Sumit Kumar, Head Product Management, Adani Solar, to please come up. Next up, we have Mr. Bhupendra Singh Rawat, Head SCM at Renewables India Private Limited, NP Group. Let's have a round of applause, please, for Mr. Rawat. And completing the panel is Mr. A.L.N. Rao, CEO, Exigo Recycling. It's over to the moderator, Mr. Jaideep Malviya.
Thank you very much. Please be seated, honorable guests. Hello, am I audible? Very good morning to everybody. Good morning. Okay, it's definitely a pleasure having the elite panelists with me on a very vital subject. Perhaps it will become the talk maybe in future. I would say still maybe, because it is yet to catch that attention, but we can get the feelers, where we are talking about circular economy. So already I think the panelist names are given. I won't further go into it because we have very limited time, and I would prefer having more interactions with the panelists rather than me doing more talking, except you'll have to bear with me for about 5 to 7 minutes with a short presentation. Okay. So as the topic suggests, we are talking about the circular economy, which basically means that the produce which is there used in a solar energy system, we recycle in very layman's term and reuse as much as possible. We reclaim and reuse it. So I represent Malviya Solar Energy Consultancy. I am also the now elected board director in the International Solar Energy Society. My very brief topic for presentation would be forming or managing producers' waste collectively. The United Nations Environment Programme says the world is facing a triple crisis of climate change, nature and biodiversity loss, and pollution and waste. And all these three need to be addressed. Circular economy is the response to that addresses all these three issues and reduce the use of material, energy, and preventing waste. Now, recently the momentum was ignited with a legislation from the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change by bringing solar energy waste under e-waste. We had the EPR in that, meaning extended producer responsibility is now applicable to all the producers, or which means the manufacturers of PV modules, inverters, batteries, including solar thermal. Let's not ignore them. Producers, instead end users, made responsible to recall their end of life products individually or collectively for recycling. Now, this is what the circular economy speaks of. We have a linear economy. Often people confuse between, what is a recycling economy or what is a circular economy. For circular economy, you have to recycle. But make sure that nothing goes waste. That's what in short is circular. We see in a linear economy, you take, make, use and waste it. It's as simple, which we do for most of our things in our day-to-day life. In a recycling economy, you take, make, use it, again recycle it, again use it, but certain portion does go as a waste, as we cannot recycle. But what a circular economy states, as you can see, the cart is empty below. Sorry, the panelists won't be able to see it. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. There is a screen here, so good, but it's very far a little, right? So we have to make sure that nothing goes underground or in a trash. That would be the real challenge for a circular economy. And I'm sure we have good amount of experts here who will help us in achieving this, making our country towards net zero, which is what our government has pledged. Now, I won't go through this. I think most of you are here in this industry. That's the projection of the 350 gigawatt peak, perhaps the target kept by the government until 2030, how we are likely to follow. We are behind schedule right now as far as the targets is concerned year on year, but I'm sure looking at this event as well, which is so gigantic, phenomenal, I'm sure that it perhaps will be much more than the 350 gigawatt peak set by the year 2030. And imagine the amount of waste which is going to get generated at the end of their life of these solar panels, inverters, batteries, or whatever may come in the entire system. Now, we had done a preliminary study on this and identified what would be the raw material requirement under a regular scenario, a regular loss. The breakup is given. I won't read through it because we are not doing a seminar thing or a teaching thing. But as you can see, the glass and the aluminum frames, they virtually would constitute about 88% of the materials. That gigantic we will be requiring. The 300 gigawatt peak will require glass, aluminum and solar cell worth 13 million tons, 3.5 million tons and 1 million tons respectively by the year 2030. These are the major, the rest being very minuscule. Now, we have these challenges of the availability of raw materials, the mining, the carbon footprint associated, all that. Why we are telling also regular loss? Because it is anticipated that some of the technologies or the systems used may achieve end of life early owing to quality issues. There are claims that the quality have been compromised in Indian projects. So they may undergo faster replacement. So that's one part of early loss we claim. Another could be anticipated, it is repowering. Repowering meaning replacing or substituting the existing technologies with some superior technologies much earlier than their lifespan. So we talk of lifespan of typically 20 years, 25 years. It may be that once you have recovered your investment, the panels or the modules may undergo repowering with a superior technology. And there would arise the question what to do with the existing panels which we have substituted. Okay. They will have a life, no doubt. Should they be sent for recycling, for some other application? So that will entail further early loss. Now, why recycle? Mining waste instead of earth addresses climate change. Recycling of glass and aluminum saves energy up to 75%, meaning if you are using the recycled product, if you reclaim it. Recovered material can repower instead of landfilling. The same can go into making of the new modules, creates employment opportunities. That's what this country needs. So you see, it addresses multifold issues. Why we need to go for a circular economy. As I have just put it in, one infographic. Why landfill? When we can repower, we can have jobs. And on a lighter side, perhaps some of the CTOs or CEOs of the company may be very happy in this. If you look at the infographic at the right bottom. It says, what's this, boss? My salary has reverted to what it was 5 years ago. Well, the boss has to say, I think we have lost. Okay, now, yeah, back. So the end use of recycled materials, we have the glass, aluminum frame, I won't read. Perhaps everything can have a value once it is recycled and reclaimed. You can reuse them. So use of recovered materials for various other applications. So we can address circular economy by way of this. Now, why we are proposing for some kind of a centralized, maybe a pan-India management organization, which will take care of all the manufacturers and producers' waste. So as you know, they are bound under EPR, that is Extended Producer Responsibility. This body will take care of that responsibility collectively. And for the purpose, what would be the expectation from the government? Reserve dedicated funds for R&D in recycling of solar panel waste. And invite proposal for Atmanirbhar Bharat recycling solutions. Now, there are certain countries or regions in the world already where the legislations for recycling are in place. Do we need to adopt their technologies, borrow from them, or should we have our own? Issue green certificates to producers similar to a responsible recycler, which is going to encourage them, yes. Let there be some kind of incentivization where they can trade these certificates, maybe in cash or for their business purpose. Prevent exports of refurbished modules. As I said, if some of the modules undergo repowering, then they may probably send it, for some rural application or a low power application in other countries where it may be required. Don't you think that can be termed as an illegal export of our precious waste in a foreign country, which probably we can reclaim and reuse it for making modules? Why send to some other countries? So prevent exports, formulate Resource Conservation and Recovery Act. There will have to be some kind of an act wherein you have the resource conservation, the manufacturers are bound under that and they send it for it to the certified recyclers, and a recovery act. So under one. And hence we request them to encourage a pan-India body for management of solar energy waste under Section 8, which can be a catalyst with recyclers. So it will be a catalyst between the producers, which are the manufacturers, the certified recyclers, and the policy makers, which are the government bodies. And a single window which is going to take care. And my last slide, there is a pill for every ill. Let's not start mulling more over it, how we will achieve. Many questions have come. Come out of a throwaway culture. Producers shoulder responsibility of collective waste management body. Define the new 3 Rs. We have reduce, reuse, recycle. We don't want to reduce. We want to recycle, reuse and repower. Practice recycling, adopt zero liquid discharge, which I'm sure many of the recyclers are already doing. Flaunt circular economy success, set benchmark. Can we say right intent, confusing content? Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. That's the thing. It reminds me of, one very famous saying in Hindi. सारी ज़िंदगी हम ये ढूंढने में निकाल लेते हैं कि हमने ढूंढना क्या है, जबकि हमें यही नहीं पता है कि जो मिला है उसका करना क्या है. Right? So waste isn't waste until we waste it. There are some of the infographics. In nature, there is no as such thing waste. In nature, nothing is wasted, everything is recycled. One profits most who wastes. These are some of the old age of a jugaad we use for recycling. So thank you very much. Thank you. So now may I request the speaker from Center for Energy, Environment, Water to make a brief presentation. and then we have the question answer session very quickly.
Yeah. Hello. Hello.
Maybe you can use also the other mic close to you. Yeah.
Sound check. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Malviya, for setting the context and giving that brief about circular economy. Good morning. My name is Arvind Poswal. Thank you for your time. I represent Council for Energy, Environment and Water. I'll be speaking about driving circular economy in the solar sector. So, Council on Energy, Environment and Water is impacting sustainable development and scale with data integrated analysis and strategic outreach. We are looking at macro level transformations which are occurring in the economy. For example, under low carbon economy for energy transitions. We are also looking at parameters and dimensions of quality of life, such as of clean air, clean mobility, sustainable food systems. Beyond, we are also looking at enablers both on the businesses end and the policy to drive things ahead. Circular economy, the work which we are going to present today, is under one of these. So, Mr. Malviya has given a brief on circular economy. I'll take you why is it imperative in the clean energy transition. Basically, it's a systems framework where we are trying reduction of waste by having regeneration and having process level efficiencies. We are having circulation of the products and materials at their highest values. We are also looking markets or economic behaviors which could incentivize such behaviors. Overall, we are trying to add certain value creating activities in the chain. Like a traditional linear model which is of make, use and dispose. So the typical model is of a make, use, dispose, which is on linear. The circular one looks at how the resource extraction, the process is there, the design which would be formulated from it, how the values which are coming out in terms of the product could be embedded in its production and manufacturing processes. And lastly is the end of life management, which becomes the most critical one. From it, the loop is being closed. Sir, the solar sector, by its very features, such as of high investment grade products, which are offering low risk of default and high durability in terms of efficiency, in terms of uniformity in its design, give the chance to reduce the extractive process and increase movement in allied sectors. So the lock-in benefits that we are trying to speak about is from the energy and material transition which is also underway. So what kind of strategies in the circular could lead to embedding of these values within it? Beyond that, we are also looking at securing energy supplies for the future and translating it into secondary benefits such as of employment generation and reducing a carbon footprint overall. So CEW's theory of change rests on 3 pillars here. We look at how data, from data we are trying to understand the quantum of waste. We are trying to estimate what volumes would be generated in the years ahead. We are examining technology, by technology is both the processes in recycling, processes in terms of manufacturing, which could be integrated into a circular framework. And lastly is on the policy, where what kind of enablers actually could be required, taking from a regulation versus a policy approach towards it. So data is our major roadblock in the circular, communicating about circular economy. Globally, there are wide range of waste estimations available, you can say here, within 50 kilotons to almost 3 billion tons between now and 2050, out of which most of which is going to come out of business to business scale at it. However, what we lack here is India-specific waste estimations. There have been global estimations about this. However, they are geography-specific. They also depend upon the module design and other local factors. What we need is here is to improve the estimations around India, look at how granularity of data could be taken towards, yeah. So what we have right now in India is we don't have granular data at each stages of the value chain, be it in the manufacturing, be it during deployment or during end of life. The models, what we are looking at, are not able to cover the geographic spread of it. What we are trying to also look at is how granular data tomorrow can be taken. For example, there is a recycling facility close to an existing plant which could be taken. What would be the end of life cycle for that particular area? Or there is an installation in an ecologically sensitive zone. How may we estimate what would be the lifetime or the degradation of the panels in that? So for this, I think that granularity of data is one of the most critical things which is coming out in terms of designing a circular framework. So how does this data unavailability restricts the functioning of business? What is the actual thing which is coming by? It prevents capital deployment because there is uncertainty in the markets. Commercial grade recycling cannot be scaled up. Economies of scale and revenue and capacity scaling remain low. Also, the policy transmission which is at place at the moment is not able to completely transmit. We have also tried for reduction in hazardous materials or looking at high value material recovery, all of which represents is difficult to estimate despite having models around. So this lack of granularity in data is something which we are looking at. So CW is also developing India-specific waste estimates. We have worked on models regarding this and what could be used towards recycling. The idea is to understand what is the quantity of waste which are being come in different streams so that tomorrow technological solutions and processes could be appropriately aligned. So let's look at some technological developments which would translate this vision into action. First is that we need improvements both in terms of product design and recycling, which is at the inception and the last phase, forward and the backward one. For example, reduction in use of hazardous materials could be one which could be taken in the first phases, which is in manufacturing. We could also have something like design for recycling. Responsible dismantling, separation, and treatment for maximum value recovery could be used towards end-of-life management. Apart from that, design processes and end-of-life management represent the two sides of circularity. As technical design improvements improve, there is a cost optimization which is built in and which drives the material revenue and reuse in manufacturing. So a criteria which we have been thinking of is towards in end-of-life management is based on scale, decentralized operations and of economic significance of recovered materials. By scale, I'm meaning to say a recycling facility which is using few hundred tons of recycling, tomorrow can it scale up to 1 million tons capacities ahead? In terms of decentralization, what is the geographical spread? What is the coverage that we can look at? In terms of recovered materials, are we actually reaching the high value recovery rates at it? Yeah. To give a quick brief on how does the process go by is, like if you see on the recycling, yeah. The first step starts with a mechanical disassembly of the module, wherein the PV module is disassembled by hand or by some processes. Thereafter is the delamination process which starts, which is it can be mechanical, chemical, or thermal, depending upon the process. And lastly is the metal recovery, which is largely chemical at the moment. Now, if you see here is one of the conundrums which we are facing here is on the mass versus the money, wherein majority of the weight of the modules is from the balance of systems, the wires, the battery storage, etc., whereas the actual value lies in the minerals and the metals which are there. Although which are present in small quantities, their extraction also is quite technically challenging, I would say. So despite these, there have been initiatives in the industry, in the academia circles by research institutions Without particularly naming any, there are few who have had displayed commercial recycling grade abilities reaching rates upwards of 85-90% at it. Our idea here is that how we may facilitate coordination between different entities present here, producers, recyclers, developers here, and bridge this information asymmetry, the gap between these, understanding from the data side, taking significant technological changes, and then translating them into certain policy goals. Policy interventions right now, the status quo is that there is no clear guidelines regarding management of waste from the solar industry. There is this information gap which restricts capital capacity deployment, and current methods exist for low value crude extraction methods only. Some of the processes which are policy processes which are underway is MNRE's note on mandatory recycling of panel glass. NITI Aayog has formed several committees for circular economy of development, and just recently there was the inclusion of solar modules in e-waste management rules of draft 2022. Yeah. Some limitations from the existing rules which have limited our facilitation is we have taken solar modules as typical consumer electronics. We have to understand and differentiate by its very nature, how its life cycle, how its timelines are, how its nature of applications in terms of a public good utility is compared to a consumer electronics which is for personal consumption. We have to differentiate it there. We are enforcing hazardous materials and hazardous waste rules on them, but these technologies, these emerging processes which are there, they thrive on material sciences. We can go for reduction in terms of their use, but a complete ban or a straight out following of the rules would be difficult for the sector. Enforcing compliance is also one of the things which is quite challenging, because we are looking at a 30-year time window, wherein you would also have incremental targets of extended producer responsibility. Looking at the timelines there, it would be crucial to understand how could this responsibility of the EPR be translated into another entity. What we are trying to vouch for is, let's look at circular economy policy development rather than just a waste regulation or regulations in general or rules at it. We have to see that regulations and rules are applicable when there is market behavior, the market is responsive. But at the moment, we have seen how the markets have been in this side, recycling. So we need a policy, a comprehensive policy, which is addressing certain components, which is looking at what interventions can be placed and which could appropriately drive the business ahead. Lastly, our call to action, what we are looking at is a comprehensive circular policy for the sector. There are 4 major ways we are trying to look at, from market instruments, technology, institutional capacity, and regulations. So within each of them, we have highlighted how business models could be taken, how finance could be undertaken. For example, tomorrow, under institutional capacity, we could have an index which is describing how green finance could be moved by, for example, circularity index for recyclers or for manufacturers, based on which tomorrow the finance could be moved. We are looking at certain surveys which could be done. We are also looking at how eco-design and design for circularity could be included in the various processes. I hope my PowerPoint had communicated certain changes which we are looking for. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Poswal. That was wonderful. So you also defined about circularity, what it is. Just on a lighter side, yesterday I was with some of the producers, the manufacturers, and they said that, this circularity is really putting us in a dizzy. वो चक्कर ही आ रहा है हमको तो अभी भी. अब गोल दिखा रहे हैं. So definitely I think that needs to be addressed. Thank you very much, I'm sure. And so we'll start with the panel discussion. There are few issues that already have been brought out in the 2 presentations, and let's see what the industry reaction to that is. So feel free to express. You know, we are still in a learning stage. There's nothing really to get scared or, you know, we will be probably punished and all. But this particular debate will look into how to make the industry really comfortable, because that's the key. It cannot be that the blame game is of the industry. I mean, the way the policies that are going around the globe, it appears as if, you know, why can't the industry come out with an eco-friendly product where we don't have to address so many issues? It automatically addresses circularity. Now, these are happening things. These are the learning process. So I'll start with, you know, the first question, and whosoever wants to answer, you are free, just raise your hand so that maybe you all need not answer all the questions. As I said, nobody can do everything, right? But everybody can do something. So let's go by that. Okay. Circular economy principle states recycled and repurposed materials can accelerate decarbonization of economy and reduce dependency on import of raw materials. What are your comments as producers, as manufacturers? You can use the mic, it is there. Anybody who wants to? So if you want me to repeat, is the question clear? That the circular economy states it accelerates decarbonization of economy and reduces dependency on import of materials. Okay, so this is working still.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Malviya. So I think all said by Mr. Malviya and Sachin in their presentation, in their content, and we just need to give our opinion here. So from my point of view, I mean, what is circular economy actually? It's a framework which is addressing the global issues of pollution, waste, and kind of climate changes. And what are the pillars for the circular economy is, you know, we need to ensure first is economy, second is environment, and obviously society. If we go down further, the question was containing the word decarbonization. So what exactly it means is less greenhouse gases emission or less burning of fossil fuels. How do we ensure that? So now comes to the principle which is there are RRR, not the popular movie actually. It is recycling, reuse, refurbishment. Now, obviously, if we proceed toward this direction of reuse, recycling, and refurbishment, we'll be able to, you know, control this issue and all. But we need industry experts to tell when to do what, because a manufacturer or a consultant or a technical expert can you know, assess the issue in the module, whether it is a premature failure or it's an end of life, whatever, whether it is required to repair or refurbish it or just reuse it. Because sometimes maybe I can give you one example, a simple diode of 25 rupees can, you know, eat 1/3 of the power of the module. And if we are not aware of what to be done, we may start recycling process. So we need to see actually what is the economical way of, you know, recovering it, whether to refurbish or, and repowering is another solution actually.
No, I think let's come to the question, because you're talking more on general. So maybe if anybody would like to say, will we be able to reduce the dependency on import of raw materials? Because so if these can be recycled, in that. So let's come, because there are many questions, so we have to just focus on that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have a high dependency on import as of now. I mean, we know that around 70-80% material is being imported. And this dependency is not only on the material, this is completely kind of capacity booking, availability of the material for us, pricing, logistics, everything. By developing a recycling process or this whole reuse, and we can reduce the imports significantly and reuse the same material at in-house, and also, you know, kind of curb the imports overall.
Yeah, good. Yeah, you wanted to add? Sorry.
I would like to add few things here. So right now in India, so if you look at some statistics, worldwide it is going to be a 70 gigawatt of panels that will get into the decommissioning by 2027. Now, if you look at how the Indian domestic module manufacturer, so let us break our import. 80 to 90% of our material, raw material, we are importing from China for high efficiency or monoperk half-cut panels, and this percentage probably is going to go on a higher side when we talk about HJT technology and TOPCon in future. So what we had seen in the presentation, if we talk about aluminum, 100% can be recycled. If we talk about the rare earth material, 80 to 90% can be recycled. And once we get into the habit of recycling, surely our import is going to come down. We will be moving towards decarbonization. So when we talk about the carbon emission, transportation is one industry which contributes to the maximum emission after HVAC, that is the air conditioning and keeping cool or warm depending upon which part of the world you are living. So definitely this is a step which we should start taking in a right direction. This is the time for India to start thinking in those lines.
So we have the answer that definitely by recycling and reclaiming, we will be able to reduce the carbon footprint. We'll address the net zero to a certain extent, as well as we'll reduce our dependency on imports. So, Mr. Rawat, can we say, I'll directly ask you one question, is it fair to bring solar energy waste under e-waste regulation, or should there be a separate regulations for renewable energy? Maybe I'll even give opportunity if others want to, but from the industry perspective, do you think it's an electronic waste?
So I think India is the second after UN who has already done it. Yeah,
European
EU,
Union. Yeah.
European Union, who has done it in 2014.
Yeah.
So basically the industry, if you see, solar module comprises of 60% of the total solar power plant. And the amount of waste we are going to generate, it is going to be humongous. And e-waste is a standard practice already available for other industries. So it is going to be easier to adopt it into this, because solar module per se, majority of, if you say value, weight-wise, 80% of that comprises of aluminum frame and glass. So which can be easily recyclable.
No, my question is, should there be a separate regulation for renewable, or is it fair to be called as an electronic? That's a simple thing, I mean.
No, I think we have already declared it under e-waste. So I think it is valid, and it should be continued like that, because there is already a procedure available.
Okay.
Because if you go to reinvent the wheel, I think you are going to waste a lot of time, because the procedures are already placed. And you have almost 178 recyclers already registered under
e-waste.
E-waste.
That's right.
So you can easily then tap that and then recycle your solar modules.
Mr. Rao, your comments on this?
Well, as recyclers, waste is waste for us. So it doesn't matter from which industry it comes from, right? It be e-waste or batteries or. But as far as regulation is concerned, listen, it's the same confusion that was there in 2011 when the e-waste rules came in. People were confused. 2016, the EPR rules came in. The plastic rules came in. Resource recovery rules drafted come out. 2018 amendments came in. Now the battery waste management rules have come in. Now, there are a lot of changes. So at the end of the day, we need to make a start for all the multiple verticals that are there in waste management. And the government is very clear that there are only two parties to it. One is the producer, who is the polluter, and the recycler, who is the scavenger. And how do we work with these two people? That's the question. And B, as far as solar industry is concerned, I do understand there's a lot of confusion happening there in the country now on, is it the right timing, and I've not made the provisions for this. And it's the same story which we have seen over the last few years, right? So it's the same story. But I'm sure the producers also would start finding out a way. So in the regulation, to answer your question, Jaydeep, that a start has been made to say that the solar is a part of e-waste. But going forward, I think there are a lot of bodies which are working on, because every vertical needs to have its own ways of working. And So my recommendation would be that solar should be on a standalone rule and with the norms clearly defined there. So it gives in a lot of clarity for the industry and clarity for the country also.
Okay, fine. The question was, in context to that, there are other renewable technologies. For example, the wind. They say even we have a lot of waste. Our blades, they are totally, in fact, made of the polymer materials which are challenged. So it could be probably that a demand may come from the industry for a recycle waste policy rather than just being a part of e-waste. So Mr. Rao, further continuing, the e-waste policy, in there it states Schedule 3 of the order specifies e-waste recycling targets from 60% to 80% up to the year 2024. For new technologies, it is relaxed from 15% to 20%. How can this be interpreted for solar panel manufacturers? How would they come under it now?
The similar confusion was there in 2016 when the rules for e-waste was announced, wherein new producers who had started business recently, they were left out and they did not have any legacy waste based on the life of the product. And that's where the new term came in, where for the new producers, till such time, the life of the product or the products that they have placed in the market, it reaches that particular period, they would go ahead with X percentage, which is a step-by-step approach where they had taken a very flexible approach the government has taken up.
Okay.
And that's where I think it helped a lot of producers who were new, who have introduced the products.
So
in the
the
country.
solar module manufacturers will fall under the new now as of this?
It depends on the life of the product that is going to be declared for solar panels.
Oh, and that's yet to
Based
come.
on that, the
Okay.
producers who have already been there, let's say if it's around 10 years, people who have been there for last 10 years would come under the regular rules. Or for
okay.
producers who have been there only for last 3-5 years time, they will go under the 10%, 15%, 20% rule. And slowly and steadily then it will move on. The time when they reach that particular life period, then the 60-70% targets would apply.
So in this case, if we have one terminology called as an orphan product. So let's say a company was there, but after 15 years it ceased to be existing. What happens in that case for this?
Yeah, see, I have my father's refrigerator, which is around 25 years old. And I say that why on hell that the government has announced a 10-year life period for a refrigerator? It's still working. The same automobiles policy, scrap policy, I have 20-year-old car. Why should I dispose it off in 10 years and 15 years?
No,
So in the same way, the quality of the panels could be of different varieties.
My context was the orphan product. Orphan means a company may be there today, but not after 20 years or 15 years. Then to whom is the EPR applicable? Because we are talking of Schedule 3, 15.
Yeah, so this is a gray area still that exists in the industry, in the regulation. Now, usually in Europe and other countries, what happens is that there's a fee that's being collected right at the sale of the product.
Oh.
Right? And that fee gets into an exchequer, into an account of the government where, the government pays the recyclers there, through various forms. But here, it's post the EPR target has been given to the producers. Hence, there is a gray area that has been discussed in the recent meetings that have happened in multiple ministries. I think there is some solutions that's coming out for that too.
Anything CEW has a thought on the orphan products? You understood? So,
Yeah, so regarding orphan products is an historical waste, which is orphan products would be once the rules come into place, and the ones which are not covered, which were placed in the market at the moment or in the previous years. Around this also, it would be that once the market is picking up in terms of recycling, going ahead, the responsibilities could be shifted towards the entity which is taking it up. We are looking at how a singular PRO could be there, government-backed one, which could tomorrow even take claims for the orphan products now. At the moment when the rules come into place, it would be that the EPR is fixing how the movement of the panels would be. But for the orphans, since it's a government-backed entity anyways, it would be keen to look into how it could be channeled into with the recyclers. That's the idea around it, sir.
So studies in other countries claim up to 91% of the recovered materials can be reused. Should we encourage recycling? No question about it. So it goes without saying, isko laga dala to like jhinga lala. That means, right, we have that. So recycling is inevitable. That's the conclusion we have drawn out of this. Now, underperforming modules lead to refurbishment, especially for the manufacturers, all right, for reuse in underdeveloped countries. Thus, the country's metal resources are illegally exported in a way, right? You refurbish and send it to maybe some other underdeveloped countries. Should this be allowed, or should it be classified as an illegal export of a raw material into other countries, which otherwise could have been recycled and reclaimed? Maybe. Yeah, okay.
If you want to take or?
Yeah, you can.
So
Just very quickly in one line, I mean, should
yeah,
it be?
So one-liner passing is why underperforming modules, that should be addressed. What is the root cause of it? Exporting it or probably sending it to a different market within the country, outside the country, it has to be legal. There is no doubt about it. But then, of course, the manufacturer, the IPPs, the government should look into why the modules are underperforming. So that probably is a bigger question to be addressed.
That's a different question altogether.
Yeah.
But so Rawat, would you like to add? I mean, in case there are underperforming modules that need replacement.
I think definitely it should not be allowed. See, like the purpose of exporting it to the countries is because they cannot afford it, right? But at the same time, in India also you have certain markets where smaller products, can be, these solar modules can be used on those smaller products.
Okay.
Where
Right.
there is no electricity. India also has got a lot of nook and corner where there is no electricity, and there you can run these smaller products like lanterns, home lighting, street lighting. Those kind of products can use this refurbished modules. And at the same time, yes, you also have to attend it at the generation. As Sachin said, that there it has to be controlled. And usability, I think India has got enough market for even that. So I think it should not be exported. Because any which way after, see, by the time you develop this recycling in-house, by the time, the end of life is going to come, and then possibly the materials are going to stay back in India and can be reused.
Okay. This question was in context to some case study. I don't want to pinpoint, but outside country, outside India, one of the places where the recycling was happening in Europe, and it was observed that probably the recycling was on paper, and all these modules which were, right?
Yeah.
You get it? I don't need to tell, which were underperforming or whatever, were exported to the other countries or used at some other application. So it has to be died down. If you claim it is underperforming, it is not there, it is end of life. That's it. Yes, Mr. Ram.
Yeah, Jaideep, in fact, right to repair is a concept that's coming up globally now in a very big way. End of life and extending life, these are two different aspects. Extending life of the product is a necessity.
Right. To
The
address.
world recommends it.
Right.
And we also recommend it, right? Now the question is, the cost of refurbishment and repair of the panels and the use in secondary applications. Now that's what matters. Is there a viability gap there? Can it happen? The repair, what are the certifications? I mean, brand A's product being repaired by a repair center and selling it under the same brand name to somebody else. Who takes the responsibility of EPR then? Who takes care of the responsibility of the warranties there if the accidents, mishaps comes in? We have seen this even in the battery industry, the same concept is there. We are seeing in the secondary application issues coming up there and enough issues, speaking with the government on various rules there, how can we address that? So even in this industry, but to help the nation grow in sending these refurbished panels to secondary applications in tier 1, 2, 3, 4 cities and using it there for multiple applications is a welcome step. I would suggest that, recommend the producers to look into it seriously And that becomes a good CSR activity also for the producers. And it would extend a good brand name under the carbon emission and green gas emissions there. The producers will earn a very good brownie points on that. So that can be looked at. How viable, feasible, those are questions to be looked into. Yeah.
Good. Well said.
But sir, just one thing. But no module manufacturer would like to state that my modules are underperforming and that is the reason why I'm going for refurbishment and I want to get a brownie points for it.
Well, we see that in e-waste, we see it in batteries, we see in plastics, now we're seeing in solar. So all industries, we are able to see this actually.
You see, there is a study done by IIT that in India it is very likely that most of the modules will die early. End of life will achieve much early because the quality was compromised. Hence, the question was in that context. Anyway, we go ahead further with the industry part again. Should there be a certification logo for the producers, which are the manufacturers who adopt EPR, so as to establish their credibility? And is it a step closer to bringing to net zero producer? Do you think that is going to aid in your business market really?
Sir, I think people who are from the manufacturing industry, module manufacturing industry, they can tell you the pain, because I don't think any other industry has got such number of certifications like module industry. You have design, you have safety, you have PID, you have ammonia, you have, sand and abrasion, you name, everywhere there are certifications. But yes, I think, it is a need of ours because it is definitely going to control, because ours is a product which has got 30 to 40 years of life. And that can only be stated once it has gone through a rigorous certification process. As far as recycling is concerned, yes, what I personally feel is that, once it has come to an end of life, it is given to a recycler and you earn certain green certificates, which should be a rewarding kind of thing.
Yeah. So what my context was, is it going to add in your business team that you are a responsible recycler, a kind of a green recycled logo or something?
That's what I was trying to say.
These are some gimmicks.
Yes, it should be there. But see, one thing is that there has to be a very clear policy laid out. It should be there, but it should be a very, very clear policy laid out, and it should be implemented equally for all the manufacturers. It should not happen that one guy who's a big guy, who has got a bigger share, is only doing it, a smaller one is left out.
Very true.
So it should be a level playing field.
Yeah, probably just like to add my 2 cents onto it. Now, so this is going to just to be a case like a insurance. If you want a reinsurer or a insurance for your product, you have to pay this much, 15 paisa, 10 paisa, 18 paisa, 20 paisa on your product. How many developers are ready to pay for that incremental cost? Everything will come with a cost. Now, we need to see whether, as India, whether our market is matured to accept such kind of an incremental cost. Now, the other way to look at it, probably we need to incentivize the third-party recycler who may be having a business case, probably to collect the decommissioned or scrap modules from the site, bring it to the factory, and probably making a business out of it. So I look this thing in another way. So probably Mr. Allen would be having a much more wider view.
Yeah. So thank you very much for supporting recyclers, firstly. So we find that support lacking in a very big way in the country. Certification aspect, of course, manufacturing, you need to have that certification, strict certifications, yes, done. Now, with regard to the country's forward movement as far as Atmanirbhar Bharat is concerned, manufacturing, local manufacturing is the key. Now, for local manufacturing, you need resources. Now, it's the recyclers rightly said that once supported well, will be able to recover these resources and give it back to the industry. That's what the circular economy is all about. From demanufacturing to remanufacturing, that's the concept there. Now, if you're able to do that, in the different laws that's been announced already or drafts that's come in, there is a percentage of content where the recycler is given targets for recycling, for resource recovery, as well as the producers are being mandated to use X percentage of recycled, recovered content into their products. Now that's where the subsidies comes into play for not only the recyclers, but also for the producers. And that is a green product, literally speaking, right? If it moves from 5% to 30%, then you are there, and India is, self-sufficient to a large extent. Also, carbon credits plays a very important role, and if we can integrate carbon credits into this particular aspect, the producers are the ones who are going to be benefited in a very big way. But at the end of the day, it's both the recyclers and the producers who have to work together to make this as a success. Yeah.
So, how this also point came, in what context, probably there is at an advanced stage, a discussion going in Europe. Every module will declare its life cycle carbon footprint on it. The lesser the carbon footprint, that will become a more attractive module for the investor. So that's the thing, probably, we follow the West, they say, and it's likely to happen. And that's why I asked, will it be really aiding the manufacturer that we are more responsible, we recycle, we have a lesser carbon footprint?
So that's a big subject. That's for one full day of discussion we can discuss.
Yeah, I know, I don't want to go. So I'll come to now to the most important question to the producers now. What initial support should government extend to producers to reduce the capital expenditure burden for meeting the recycling costs, as it will have not already been built while you had already sold these modules?
Yeah. So I think obviously we need a lot of support because recycling as of now in country is not fully established, and we are at the very beginning stage. Countries like Europe or Spain have just started and they're practicing PV cycle and other, kind of last few years. Support-wise, obviously we need infrastructure across, which is, kind of integrated system amongst the government, the manufacturer, the recycler, and the consumers and all. We also looking for some kind of, incentives from government. The way PLI schemes come, and it is limited to like cell module and the value chain, we can include this process recycling reuse also in the value chain. And they can boost this number, which is 90,500 crore, to more to boost this industry. And there has to be, in that way, a closed loop system so that the waste of PV must go to the PV only, rather going to other industry.
It's a good point.
Yeah. That is kind of open loop recycling. And presently it is happening actually across, which is is kind of cottage industry recycling as of now, cement, concrete, clay, and all those. Silicon is precious, and the other metals like aluminum, silver, and all. So that is the support, and obviously there is infrastructure required where registration process, monitoring process, governance process, all those should be there, and we must ensure that the processes which we have defined must ensure the recovery of the raw material to very high level, let's say 98%, and go to the PV industry. Yeah, that's it.
What's your take, about is covered? So you would like to say anything? What support government must extend in order that now it's under e-waste, the recycling will be a feasible activity?
See, we have seen the solar deployment from year 2000 till 2010. It was nothing actually. After 2000, it increases substantially. So government already has, set of processes done, because if you see how the deployment happened for solar, that time it was very high cost. They had all the state-wise nodal agencies. From there, they are passing on the subsidies. So initially, they have announced subsidies up to 40%. So this is the similar way, because they already have the chain developed. So through the nodal agencies, they can adopt this process, plus the recyclers already are in place. So the subsidies can come to these recyclers, and the manufacturers should be able to tie up directly with them. Subsidies are coming. Recycling is happening, and reusing also is happening. So this way, the loop can be closed.
So the government must initially
Must
pitch in
initially,
for the
absolutely.
infrastructure.
Any industry, if you want to have a flourishing industry, like he already mentioned, Sumit has already mentioned that there is a PLI, because India does not have a solar value chain presence, and they want to enhance the manufacturing capacity. So there is already PLI. Second level of PLI is also announced, 19,500 crores. So similar way, if they have something for recycling also announced, and distribution, they already have the channel, as I mentioned, that nodal agencies, because it is government which is going to play a major role there. And the private party is the recycler as well as the manufacturer, all are in loop. So
Good
this
point.
can actually address.
Any comments from CEW? You have any data on this? Maybe probably you had a interaction with the manufacturers in that. Was this discussion happened? What support should be extended?
Sure, something on those lines were definitely detailed about it in the processes. But when you're looking exactly at what incentives or subsidies, this is they become very broad-based words to describe it. If, for example, tomorrow you were talking about eco-design labels which producers could use or certain processes they could adopt to. Say now market would depend in terms of its responses would for the producers would be based on how they are able to take their deployment capacities ahead. And the government could look at, say, tomorrow this producer is meeting certain targets, is having certain design processes. Can it be given certain preferences in certain biddings in the deployments ahead? Can its facilitation or the laws or the taxes which it is going about, could there be something on these? We have been deciding on this,
Okay,
but
fine. Okay, fine.
nothing
So
is,
now I think already I've got the time's up. But very lastly, I'll just take a minute if I can be given by the, because from the organizer, because it started 8 minutes late. I've almost covered one. So if a combined producers waste organization is thought of, I won't say PRO, but more that manages the combined waste of all the manufacturers, including the importers, and looks into the various other maybe regulatory aspects, maintaining database, acting as a catalyst between maybe the policymakers, the government and the producers. Will it be a welcome step? Do you think? Because it will reduce the burden of the manufacturers. Otherwise, every other manufacturer will start to look into where to provide these to the certified recyclers, how to obtain the certificates or blah, blah. So a single agency, a pan-India, perhaps which will be controlled by all these manufacturers. Will it be a good idea? Just in yes or no, perhaps as a toggle.
Yeah, certainly this would be a good idea.
If it could be no also, you are free to say yes or no, all the industry people particularly.
So in fact, the PRO concept came in and it was supposed to be an aiding agency for the industry, for the country. Unfortunately, it's flopped.
Okay.
And so what it has done is it's increased the rates of the products out there in the market. India is suffering because of this,
Okay.
and so it's from whose pocket it's going to be paid? It's the producers. At the end of the day, they are the ones who's going to jack up the prices, right? So, to answer your question, that for ease of operation, it looks fine, but on commercial terms, if you were to look into, it's not the right option, I would say.
Okay.
And so just sum it up, as far as since recycling you had mentioned also, just to inform that there are recyclers out here in the country who have come out with solutions for solar panel recycling.
Yeah, I'm aware.
And because the rules were not there, so there was not a huge noise made out in the country. But now that the rules have announced, there are a lot of producers out there now contacting the recyclers or through various associations to find out what needs to be done, how can I do it. And we, Exigo Recycling, have a unit where we are able to recycle solar panels and are moving into the circular economy concept in a big way. So
Okay.
thought let me address that and make a point there.
Thank you very much. Maybe quick 1 or 2 questions from the audience, if there are any, because they should also be given the privilege they have attended. Otherwise, we can end the session. Unless they all have very good knowledge today, they have educated now, I think, if there are no questions. Yeah, we have one. Please introduce yourself and tell your...
Yeah, myself, Alar Kulkarni. I am from National Dairy Development Board. and we have been executing these solar implementations in our dairy projects, dairy plant projects. So my question is, when we say there is a responsibility for manufacturer, specifically that producer, but when that produce is there are a lot of other stakeholders also involved, like maybe EPC companies are there are assemblers, there are end users. So why these responsibilities cannot be transferred to these guys also? So that produce may not be orphan at the end.
See, the law
Is there
states,
any policy
the
or
law
is there-
states it is EPR, meaning the producers. That's a global law, I think, everywhere. Any product you take, ideally it falls under EPR. EPR means extended producer responsibility. One who produces has to take back. Am I correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
Mr. Rao
right.
has to-
So it's a good question that you asked, sir. The similar aspect came in 2016 when there were only 21 item codes that were added, and out of the WEEE in e-waste rules. And at that time, the PROs came in. Then we said bulk consumers will have to come in. And then came in the question that where are the warehouse guys? Where are the packaging guys? The skill development guys? Where are the reverse logistics guys? Where are the shipping guys? All these people are part of the ecosystem, and there are very many more. Now, if we were to add all these people, and 600 WEEE products were to be added, we're looking at lakhs of people getting registered into the portal of the government, and regulations to be implemented and to be monitored for lakhs of people. Impossible. Unviable.
Unviable.
Hence,
That's what I was
it's
saying.
only the
Unviable.
polluter and the scavenger. These are two guys. And the government can actually have good control over these two people and ensure that the policies are implemented 100% perfectly. Then automatically it's the producer who is going to take various means of how he is going to achieve his targets. And recycler would be supporting them. So hope that answers your
It's
question.
a big debate, so ideally it has to be producers. Okay? So since there are no further questions,
Just a small question or suggestion, whatever. I am not sure whether we have given this project or mission any name yet. If not, maybe we can give something, so that we all should call this with that name, not recycle, reuse, or circular economy and all those things. Yeah, that's it.
good idea, good suggestion. You are most welcome to suggest your names, or we will think over it. I would only say in a concluding remark that goods of today are resources of tomorrow at yesterday's price. At yesterday's price, right? So if we are talking of 25 years ahead or 20 years, they were at yesterday's price. They are the goods of today, which you are giving, and they are the resources of tomorrow because we are going to reclaim, recycle, right? Thank you very much, everybody, the panelists,
Thank
the
you so
audience, for your patient listening, and thank you to the organizers for this wonderful session. You have ignited again this particular topic, which I'm sure in the coming years it's going to grow and grow. Similarly, what our solar energy industry has been growing. I'm sure 10 years ahead down the line, this will be the key topic in every of the events, right? So, as I said, waste is not a waste unless you consider a waste. No more it will be a waste. Thank you.
Indeed, a very thought-provoking session. I'm pretty sure the conversations would continue. The panelists are available. You can get in touch with them personally as well. And just the note that we needed to start day 2. Let's have a round of applause again, please, for the panelists. And a group picture awaits you.